looking at a bank screen that displays $600 when you earn 600,000 is an out-of-body experience that instantly alters your reality. I stood inside the polished mahogany office of the chief executive, staring at the resignation letter I had just slid across his massive desk. He eyed the paper with genuine bewilderment, asking why I was quitting after receiving the highest year-end bonus in the firm. I kept my composure, looked him dead in the eye, and told him my account balance held less than $1,000. His surprised expression instantly twisted into a furious scowl as he grabbed his desk phone and dialed the head of finance on speakerphone. The line connected, and a sycophantic voice cheered through the speaker, bragging that nearly $600,000 had been quietly funneled straight into the chief executive's wife's personal account. The finance guy boasted that he had hidden the transfer perfectly, claiming the boss's wife suggested a young professional like me would just spend it recklessly. The air in the room froze solid while the boss turned a sickly shade of green. The chief executive slammed his hand onto the end call button, plunging the room into a heavy, suffocating silence. I remained standing perfectly still, watching him wrestle with the realization that his picture-perfect marriage was built on cheap betrayal. He asked me when I found out, his voice sounding like cracking ice. I told him I saw the bank alert on my phone screen, checked my official electronic pay stub, which clearly listed $600,000, and realized my hard work had been systematically stolen from me. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to grasp why I submitted my resignation instead of coming to him first. I reminded him that I gave 5 years of my life to this firm, building operations from the ground up, but I would never stay at a company where the finance department secretly wipes out 6 figures of earned income. He knew it was no technical glitch because his employee had just bragged about wiring the money directly to his wife. He sat there terrified, realizing the elegant woman he shared a home with was capable of ruining his business behind his back. He picked up his phone with a trembling hand, hesitated for a moment, and dialed his wife on speaker. When she answered in a sugary, cheerful voice, my stomach churned as I recognized the exact tone she used days earlier when she warned me over the phone to know my place as a worker bee. The executive demanded to know what happened to my bonus payout. A brief, telling silence hung over the line before she smoothly dialed up a soft, innocent tone, claiming she knew nothing about corporate affairs. When he pressed her about the massive sum wired to her personal account, she did not panic for a second. She casually lied that the finance guy had merely asked her to hold company funds temporarily for liquidity purposes, offering to wire it back whenever needed. Her performance was slick and calculating, framed as a loving wife helping her husband manage business finances. But having just heard the finance guy take credit for stealing my earnings, her sweet excuses sounded completely vile and pathetic. The chief executive asked her if she honestly took him for a fool, and his biting tone caused her to instantly shift tactics. She began playing the fragile victim, asking if I was standing in the room with him right then. She urged him not to listen to a manipulative subordinate, claiming I was just a desperate younger employee trying to sleep my way to the top and frame her out of pure jealousy. Hearing her construct a complete lie in real time made the atmosphere in the office turn toxic. I watched the executive drown in a wave of doubt, conflict, and sheer humiliation as his wife continued her hysterical performance. She had used the oldest weapon in the corporate playbook, accusing the successful female executive of being a scheming temptress to cover up her own financial crime. When she loudly demanded through the speaker that I be put on the phone to face her, I simply shook my head at the executive. I was not going to lower myself to engage in a gutter shouting match with a thief. I told him calmly that since this was a personal marital conflict, he needed to process my departure immediately while my legal counsel handled the stolen funds. He called out my name in a desperate, cracking voice, begging me to stay and figure it out, but I did not hesitate for a single step. I pushed through his heavy doors and walked straight through the busy executive suite. My coworkers were rushing around with tablets, completely oblivious that the entire leadership of the company was crumbling right beside them. I packed only my personal laptop, trench coat, and a leather notebook containing 5 years of strategic accounts before heading toward the elevators. My assistant asked if I needed documents printed for our upcoming major client review with our biggest investor, but I gently told her to cancel my entire schedule. I stepped into the elevator, felt the heavy burden of the past 5 years lift off my shoulders, and walked out into the brisk city air. I immediately pulled out my phone and called a top federal litigation attorney named Julian. Julian answered on the second ring, and I explained that the boss's wife had colluded with the finance director to steal my six-figure bonus. When I told him I had resigned on the spot without raising my voice or making threats, he laughed softly in approval. He confirmed that I had played my cards perfectly, instructing me to gather my pay stubs, bank records, and details of the speakerphone confession. He invited me directly to his law office so we could begin drafting an immediate legal response. Sitting inside his classic wood-paneled office, Julian poured me a cup of black coffee and laid out our strategy. He explained that by withholding my contractually obligated compensation, the firm had committed an egregious breach of contract that completely invalidated my restrictive non-compete clause. That meant I was officially a free agent, entirely clear to start my own firm and bring my key clients along with me. A cold, powerful sense of determination washed over me as I realized the immense leverage I now held. Our biggest client was an investment firm handling nearly 40% of our company revenue, and their managing director trusted my team exclusively. Julian drafted a formal legal demand requiring the immediate release of my full $600,000 payout plus interest and severance, warning that refusal would trigger a public federal lawsuit. We knew the chief executive would be terrified of the board discovering his wife was treating corporate payroll like her personal bank account. The next morning, my phone blew up with desperate text messages from the boss, begging me to handle this privately and return for the client meeting. Instead of answering his texts, an anonymous blast email suddenly hit the inboxes of the entire executive team, board members, and major project leaders. The message contained a vicious smear campaign, claiming I had been attempting to extort the executive through fake financial accusations after my romantic advances were rejected. I felt a surge of cold fury, realizing the wife was trying to destroy my professional reputation before the truth came out. However, when I called Julian, he informed me that this desperate attack was actually a massive gift for our legal team. Julian explained that his digital forensics experts could trace the email back to the wife's personal network, meaning she had just committed tortious interference and severe defamation in writing to the board of directors. He advised me to reach out directly to Arthur, the head of our largest client firm, to state the facts of my departure. I called Arthur immediately, and when he expressed shock over my sudden absence from our scheduled review, I calmly informed him that I resigned due to severe financial integrity issues at the executive level. The moment Arthur heard that corporate funds were being improperly routed to private accounts, his tone turned razor sharp. He declared that he had zero trust in the remaining management team and refused to let a junior staffer handle his multi-million-dollar portfolio. He promised to call an emergency investment meeting to pull his capital from the firm immediately, while offering to transfer his business to my new firm as soon as I registered it. The first major piece of their corporate empire had officially collapsed. 3 days later, the chief executive and his legal counsel desperately requested an emergency joint mediation meeting. We agreed on one strict condition. The executive, his wife, and the finance director all had to sit across from us in person. On a rain-soaked morning, they filed into our conference room looking completely broken. The executive looked like he had not slept in days. The finance guy looked terrified of going to prison, and the wife sat tightly clutching her expensive handbag, desperately trying to maintain her arrogant posture. The chief executive opened the meeting by apologizing, offering to wire my original $600,000 back immediately from an escrow account. Julian cut him off coldly, sliding a thick stack of legal documents across the table. He presented a certified digital forensics report proving that the smear email sent to the board originated directly from the wife's personal laptop. She turned pale and shrieked at her husband to protect her. But the executive finally snapped, roaring at her to shut up while slamming his fist onto the table. The executive admitted through trembling breaths that the major client had pulled all their capital, freezing their funding round, and driving the company to the brink of bankruptcy. His legal team desperately offered a $2.6 million settlement for damages, along with a full retraction of the lies, provided I signed a strict non-disclosure agreement. I leaned across the table, accepted the monetary payout, but flatly refused to sign any non-disclosure agreement, ensuring their public humiliation would be complete. I also informed the finance director that I had already filed a formal complaint with federal authorities regarding his recorded wire fraud confession. We demanded the full multi-million-dollar transfer hit my bank account by noon, or we would release the forensic evidence directly to the press. Within 2 weeks, national financial news outlets reported the complete downfall of the company, the CEO's forced resignation, and the criminal indictment of the finance director. Today, I run my own thriving firm with my former clients, reminded that true success is built on unwavering integrity and relentless self-worth.